Hey guys, coming at you today with keto bread. Not just any keto bread, because I've seen all those videos on YouTube that have the vital wheat gluten in them, and my stomach just cannot handle that. And I was hoping I could make a delicious bread without that. And it took a lot of testing, but I finally figured it out. So let's get started. Welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alicia and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. And here we make delicious keto pastries or baked goods from my time as a pastry chef. And my goal is to make the best pastries possible. If you enjoy this, please hit the subscribe button down there. I'm coming at you every Saturday with a new keto dessert recipe. First things first with this bread is we gotta preheat our oven and get our pan ready. So 350 degrees. I'm using my smallest loaf pan that I have. I did try it in silicone and it does work if you have that. This is a 8.5 by 4.5 by 2.5 inch bread pan. I already used it 3 times yesterday trying to figure out an easier bread recipe with less ingredients. It didn't work. But that's the deal with our keto desserts and bread. You need all different elements to make it more like regular bread. I've got my piece of parchment paper. I kind of set it on there and see where I have to cut. I cut a strip going the long way and then the other strip fits perfectly the other way. So there's some oil in there. Just spread that around a little bit and that'll help your parchment paper stick. Stick one that way, stick one this way. And then I give it a little spray, just for good measure. Just a light coating, and I usually just spread it around. I've already weighed out all my dry ingredients here and sifted them. I'm just gonna give them an initial stir. The biggest thing with this is getting all your ingredients mixed well, because if the psyllium husk and oat fiber aren't whisked together well, you'll get dark spots in your loaf of bread. I'm just gonna pop the ingredients up here on the screen, because it is a lot of different dry ingredients, but I tried eliminating some and nothing came out as good as that first batch I made. I'm just gonna put all these in my stand mixer and I'm gonna mix this pretty well also. We'll go back to mixing that some more after we get our other ingredients going. Now I've had my eggs out since this morning, but they're still kind of cold. So what I've been doing is putting them in a little bit of warm water to get them nice and warm, and they whip up really good that way. I got 3 tablespoons of butter here. I'm gonna melt this. So I got my 3 eggs in here. I'm gonna whip those up with butter and just a little bit of apple cider vinegar because we have baking soda in here that will counteract with that and it'll puff up. Plus baking powder I found gives it a nice lift. So I'm just gonna beat this until it's over double in volume. Okay, nice and light and fluffy. We're gonna stream in our melted butter and our vinegar. Now this does have yeast in it. It's mostly for flavor. I don't think it really does anything to give it lift because we're not adding sugar. Another thing to mention, I have no nuts in here either. So no sugar, no nuts, and no gluten. I actually have someone in my family that's allergic to nuts. I wanted to make a recipe that pretty much anybody could eat. I'm gonna use a whole packet of yeast. I wanna get my water at about 110 degrees to dissolve the yeast and to dissolve our sweetener. I'm gonna be using allulose. I found that's the best one. I tried monk fruit yesterday and it wasn't as soft of a texture. I think because it didn't melt all the way through like the allulose did, but I could be wrong about that. It might work with other sweeteners. It might be something else I changed in the recipe. We need 1.5 cups of water. And another reason we're doing this is because psyllium husk is activated by warm water. We want this dissolved real well and we want our psyllium husk to get hydrated quickly. So I just add the whole pack in, give it a whisk. Smells yeasty. And I'm just gonna add in 1/4 cup of allulose. This is definitely something that can be altered either less or more. This doesn't make it really sweet at all, but if you'd like a sweeter white bread, I would add some more. Make sure that's really dissolved in there. We're gonna pop on our dry ingredients to get them even more mixed. Then we're just gonna stream in our water. Let that go until a dough forms. Okay, I give it a little scrape down just to get any, it's a little bit too wet up top into the bottom. It smells like bread. Give it a little bit more mix. You don't want any of the ingredients not to be fully incorporated in here. Okay, once it's a dough, add in your eggs and vinegar and butter. Mix that in. Give it a little scrape. One more mix. And that's it. Get into our loaf pan. Now, the biggest thing about putting it into the loaf pan is getting it all the way down into the bottom. It's a thicker dough, so you can easily leave air pockets in the bottom. Just make sure it gets kind of down in there. Didn't even mention the best part of this bread. If you cut it into 16 pieces, it's only 1 gram of net carb. I've been eating this all week on different sandwiches that I've been missing. Bacon, cheese, tomato, roast beef sandwiches. Oh, it was good. Haven't had a roast beef sandwich in ages. Just want to make sure it's all nice and smooth on top. And then we're just going to be popping this in the oven for 35 to 40 minutes. Probably the hardest part about this is knowing when to pull it out of the oven. You don't want it underbaked because the psyllium husk tends to be really wet and it takes a while for it to dry out. But you don't want to overbake it because then it gets really kind of dry on the outside and dry on the inside. I'm going to smooth this out with a little bit of water on my hands to get a nice smooth top or smooth-ish top on our bread. Okay, popping it in the oven. Yay. We're gonna have a nice fresh loaf of bread soon. I'll be back to show you when it comes out of the oven. Don't forget to turn halfway through so that it bakes evenly. And look at this gorgeous loaf of bread. Smells so good. It was in the oven for 40 minutes. I pulled it out at 35 and I noticed this little crack here was still a little moist. So I didn't want to pull it out quite yet. And then another trick I do is I put a thermometer in it. And if you pull it out and it's not gooey, it should be good. Keto bread isn't the easiest to decide whether it's done or not. But we're going to keep this in the loaf pan for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to pop it out onto the rack and let it cool slightly before we slice into it. Can't wait. It smells so good in here. Be back soon.
A few minutes later.
Okay, I couldn't wait any longer to cut into this. It hasn't been very long, so it's probably still piping hot. But you should wait. I'm going to cut it right in half to start so you can see a cross section. Super light and fluffy. Oh, it's such a good bread. Like I said, I've been making sandwiches all week with this bread. So if you cut each side into 8, which it might be a little bit tough to do, pretty thin slices, but still, even if you cut it into 12 slices, it's still going to be less than 2 grams of net carbs per slice. Cut myself a slice. And you really shouldn't do that to your knife either, but it's so hot. I don't want it on the cutting board because then it'll just steam on the bottom. Like super moist and soft. It has a chew of a regular bread slice. That oat fiber really makes it smell like bread, and the yeast. It is delicious just like this, or toasted in the toaster oven. I'm so happy to have bread back again, you don't even know. I tried bread recipes when I first started keto, and I had 2 epic fails, and it was so much ingredients to make a loaf that I just gave up on trying to make keto bread. And at that time, I knew nothing about keto baking. It took me this long to try and tackle bread again, and I'm so happy I waited, because now I know way more about baking. And this recipe kind of just came from my biscuit recipe, because it's very similar ingredients. And I knew I could get a nice soft bread. I did it, and I'm so happy I did. I did 6 tests, but they were all edible. They weren't pretty, but they were edible. So I didn't waste too many ingredients. It's so good. It's soft and chewy and a little crunchy around the edges. It tastes, well, I haven't had regular bread in over a year now, but to me, man, this is delicious. I hope you guys enjoy this bread recipe as much as I do. It is so nice to have bread back in my life again. Leave me a comment telling me what you've been missing on keto all this time. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button down there. Share with your friends who may be gluten-free or can't have nut flours. As always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye, guys.